In the last 7 to 8 years, I have generated over $300 million in email revenue for hundreds of e-commerce brands and knows exactly what works to get brand revenue. And to be honest, way too many brands, like you probably, sacrifice revenue because the email designs are poor. And aside from that, even if you think they're good, they're probably costing you tons of money. Trust me, even good designs can cost you money. So by the end of this video, what I want to leave you with is you're going to know exactly how to build an email, number one, what exactly makes a good email design that actually generates good revenue, and how to correctly upload it into your email platform. So let's jump into it. All right, now, before you start creating really good emails, you have to understand exactly what makes up a good email, what brands are pushing out good emails, so you can search for inspiration from them instead of trying to reinvent the wheel. So there's two tools that I absolutely recommend that you use. Number one is mold.com, as you can see over here, and the second one is reallygoodemails.com. Now, the purpose of both these tools is essentially to find inspiration across the industry instead of you having to subscribe to tons of different brands. And so I have specifically pulled up the best brands for you to subscribe to that continuously put out really good emails and are across the board in multiple industries. So go ahead, pause this video, and subscribe to all of these brands on these tools. Now, the whole point is that essentially it's going to start to populate the emails that these brands are sending on a day-to-day basis. And it's helpful because you can see exactly what time they were sent out. You can click on it, see the subject line, you can see the preview text, and then overall, the most important thing is you can see what other brands are pushing out in terms of design continuously. And trust me, all of these are incredible emails that probably generate thousands and thousands of dollars in revenue. Now, I've compiled some of the best ones to give you an idea of what makes them great emails. So for example, one of my favorite brands in the supplement industry, which is an industry that we primarily work with in our agency, is Heights. Now, Heights is incredible because they simplify email marketing and they do everything correctly. So for example, what they do really well is in every single email, they follow a formula that you're going to see continuously repeated amongst every single brand. And essentially it follows like this. They know very well that the first 5 seconds of an email is the most important. And so what you can see is in these first 5 seconds of opening up, they immediately have their logo, which doesn't take up too much space. A lot of mistakes that brands make is they keep this as a separate logo section. You do not want to do that. That is not what you want to do. You want to put the hero visual and the logo together so it doesn't take up extra space. So logo, number one. Then they have their headline, number two. Then they have the image, their product image or their main image, number three, and then they have CTA. So essentially there's a 4-step process in this, sometimes a 5-step if you want a sub-headline. So the way that it works is it's logo, then headline, then main image, and then button or CTA. And so that's the most important thing. And only afterwards do you have this extra information or the infographics. So you can see that in email number 2 as well. What makes it really good is in the first 5 seconds, people know how to convert, where to convert, and what they need to see. So the rule of thumb is essentially in the first 5 seconds, does your audience know exactly what you're offering, number one, where to get that offer, number two, and what exactly is included. So here is super important because this is now a sales email. Again, you can see how they shorten this even more. So first 3 seconds, you essentially have that same formula. It's their logo, number one, then their headline, number two, and this is where the extra step comes in, is they're giving additional information like the code as step number 3. So this is step number 1, step number 2, step number 3, and step number 4 is the CTA, and then it is the image of their product. So every single time you're going to see this formula repeated. You don't want massive amounts of text. You don't want to wait until the CTA is shown. You want in the first 5 seconds all 5 or 4 of these elements to show up immediately, and that is what differentiates a really good design. Now, the next most important thing that you're going to notice is essentially you're going to see a very common pattern, which is essentially that every single email is continuous. It looks like a landing page. That is what makes a good design because it doesn't feel like these stops. It doesn't feel like you're being sold to. It feels genuinely interesting to look at and continue through as a user. So you'll see this continuously where everything feels like this continuous landing page design. And then the other element of it is there's not too much text. All of the text is easily digestible and it's put into an infographic. Huge mistake that brands make is they overcomplicate the design, they overcomplicate it with too much copy, and then it ruins the entire process for the user. They need to very quickly understand what you're offering, where to get it, and how to get it. And so your focus is making sure that they're as clear as possible on that product so they want to purchase. Best way to do it is with design like this, making sure that the important elements are highlighted through copy design, which means adding different colors to that copy to add emphasis, then making sure that it's not just this, word vomit. It's essentially an infographic. And then other most important is adding some reviews and some kind of information that will reiterate the point and drive home trust or trust factor. So second email does exactly that. Again, it's not this word vomit of trying to show these products. It is driving home the core elements and everything everyone would want to see. Now, another great brand to showcase is Breeze. Everyone knows Breeze in the email marketing game. They are some of the best emails, but there's a reason for it. Again, it's that formula: logo, hero text, subtext, CTA, and image. Right? So first 5 seconds is, again, those 5 steps, those 5 core steps without fail. Now, the difference with them is that they simplify everything especially well. So they add some reviews when needed, and they add very little information. They usually focus on one product or a category specifically, and they're really intentional with what they send and when they send it. But now the trick with them is another element of design is actually minimalism. Some of that minimalism comes from text-only emails, which again, if you are not doing, you are losing so much money. Now, the trick here is so many people do this wrong. It is not a visual. Okay, what that means is there is no branding on this. You can see there's no bar at the bottom. There's no text saying, anything about that. There's no colors. There's no images. It is nothing. It is literally a plain text email. You have to be doing this at least twice a week. Trust me, it's going to make a big difference to your revenue. So the way that this works is it's not only just this product highlight email. It is essentially this email that talks about personability. So it's coming from this, kind of an alias at the company. He's a real person. You can see him active on LinkedIn, for example. But it's essentially an alias, and the email team is the one handling this, not Corbin himself. But they say Corbin from Breeze. They change the sender name, they change the sender, and then they are essentially adding this personal touch. And it's just simply hyperlinking a CTA instead of making it this massive salesy email. Feels more organic and personalized, where in a world where everyone is sending image-based emails, this cuts through all the fluff and performs incredibly well. So I highly recommend doing this. Now, another brand to take a look at is 8 Sleep. 8 Sleep is in a completely different industry to most of the brands that we work with, for example, which are mostly replenishable products like supplements, nootropics, wellness. But with this brand, what they do incredibly well is they simplify the entire process of design, and it is just an incredible user experience looking at these emails. They take simplicity to the max, and this is what you should be doing for all of your emails as well. Now, what they do is, again, they follow that formula. You don't even need to repeat it. Logo, headline, subtext, CTA, hero image. Very simple. First 5 seconds, you know everything you need to know, as well as sometimes there's an added banner. Now, this is an important element, especially for sales. Always add a banner if you have some kind of sale, like free shipping over to $75 or something. Then what they do is, again, they just simplify everything. They talk about, hey, here's how to get more deep sleep. And so this brings me to my next topic of what really good emails consist of. Now, a big mistake is that people think you have to continuously send sales emails, which is absolutely incorrect. There's definitely different types. So you obviously get your sales emails or your promo emails. Then you also get your educational. And so this one on the left, I would consider an educational email. It doesn't seem like the core focus is to get you convert because they're giving you some value. Same as if you sell, a supplement that helps with sleep. The way that you'll do it is you'll say, hey, here is a blog on how to get the best sleep of your life, or how to consistently get 8 hours of deep sleep. And so what you're going to do is you're just going to break it down into a very digestible email. And as one of the solutions to getting better sleep, you just hyperlink it as your product. And so it doesn't seem salesy, but it absolutely is. And that's an educational email. Then you can do some personalized emails, which are basically text only emails. And then you obviously get your other elements of blog-based emails. You can get some other upsell, cross-sell, and then obviously cultural emails. So you get tons of different kinds of emails. You don't always have to send sales-based. But I recommend looking at the way that 8 Sleep does the emails. And then another great one in terms of design and experience, and an email that as a customer I want to open and look at, is Umra. So 100% go subscribe to these brands, but these are incredible emails. Now, to take it a step further, I wanted to show you some bad emails in comparison to well-designed emails. And I'm going to talk about why that is. So for example, we went and found New Balance's email, and we thought that it was pretty bad. So my team actually went ahead and redesigned it. Now, the reason it's bad is because, number one, there's no consistency, there's no continuous design here. It's just a bad user experience, and the CTA comes way too low. So what we did is we rebuilt it like this, and you can see all of the elements, you can see how we rebuilt it. But essentially, what we did is we followed that formula. Logo, then the hero visual, and then the CTA. So in the first 5 seconds, they know exactly what we're onto and what we're talking about. And we also display the shoes a little bit better. Over here, yes, we want to trust that people are wearing them, but overall, we're trying to push the shoes. And so we wanted to highlight the shoes in a really high graphic where they can specifically see the style of the shoes themselves. Then we break it down. So again, low down, they kind of have this terrible design structure where there's so much white space, it's not a good user experience, there's no CTAs. So how are you going to click onto the product itself? So we broke it down way simpler. We said for men's and women's, and we showed the best selling shoes in a higher graphic style and consistent style. Here, I mean, there's no point in showing the shoe because you can't even see the design. So we wanted to fix that. We added this, we showed exactly what the discount was on each product based on the website sales, and then we also just broke it down based on category. And then after all, we just summarized the entire email. So this is, in my opinion, a way better email in comparison to a bad email. And then another example is My Protein. Again, just not a great email. They do follow a little bit more of the better design, and everything is a bit better here. The issue being that, again, everything is not flowing. It doesn't show the products as well as it could. It doesn't highlight the products as well as it could. And also, everything is a bit smaller than it should be. We really want to highlight and drive home every detail of the sale. And so we broke that down here. We removed this unnecessary clutter at the top, and then we essentially broke it down in this way. We added a reviews section, which is missing over here, and then we also just added an additional section. So everything continuously flows. Like I said, it looks like a landing page. It is way more enjoyable, and this by far gets way more conversions. Now, another reason for that, which is a small added detail, is this CTA is kind of hidden, blends in with the rest of the text. So what we did is we changed it up. We made it a little bit more clear. Now, here are some few other elements. You can see very clearly what the differences are and why it's better. This is way too cluttered. This is what a lot of brands do as a mistake. And then instead, we just added way more clarity to the email. Another one is Uggs. I think their emails are just terrible, and they probably fire their team and hire us if they wanted better emails. But essentially, this is just a terrible breakdown. So we took everything, we took all the elements, boosted it up, showed real people wearing the products, and you can see it highlighted better, showing other visuals, just overall way better design. And here are a few more. So I could go on for days about how to build a better email, but hopefully this gives you a really good idea. And again, to drive home the example of, best practices, this is essentially what it is. It is your logo, hero visual, CTA, body text, and then you can show some additional sections. And then for plain text, very simple. Just look at the way this is done. It is a plain text email. There's no visuals, there's no images. So this is the best way to actually go ahead and build out emails. You know how to identify a bad email, you know how to identify a good one, and you know the core elements. So let's build an email together so we know exactly how to do that. Now, what I want to do is I want to rebuild a Whoop email. Now, the way I'm going to do this is we've already done a redesign. I'm going to show you how we did it. But this is a really bad email, in my opinion. This is what their existing email was. It's very, kind of lackluster. And so we want to rebuild this. Now, the way that we're going to do this is I've already grabbed all the elements from their website, and we're just going to rebuild it together. Now, to start, I want you to follow along so that you can learn, you can try, and you can see what we're doing. Now, first things first is when you open up and you start to build an email design, we want to start with the main element, which is a rectangle. So for shortcut, press R on your keyboard, and you want to drag this down. You want to just basically create a framework, right? So we want to resize this to 700 as best practice, and height doesn't really matter right now. And what I want to do is I am personally going to frame this, so anything in this frame is now going to become this one section, this one email. And what we want to do is I like to base it around the hero visual that we want to make it, so the whole design does kind of gauge and bear weight on the hero visual. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put this over here, and I am going to make sure that as I go along, everything is falling under the right area and that I'm naming them. So I'm just going to name this hero visual. And essentially the reason why we do that as well is because once we're working with multiple elements, we want to make sure we can keep up with what's actually going on. Now I'm going to create another rectangle, and I'm going to put it on top of here. And so what we're going to do here is hero section. All right. And what we want to do is we want to, again, make sure we're following best practice and making sure that it follows on from this hero visual. And so the way that we're going to do this is we're going to add a gradient. Best way for you to add a gradient is you open up the color scheme and you click on gradient here. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that the gradient is horizontal and not linear. So we're just going to flip it like this. All right. And I'm going to click on here, and I'm going to grab this color over here. And then I'm also going to grab this color over here. All right. And so it's not going to look absolutely perfect, but as time goes on, we will start to, manufacture it. And so you can play around with how the visual shows up. Some things that you can do is you can keep rotating. You can also add some, different appearances. So you can darken it, you can lighten it, multiply, etc., etc. So you can play around until you get your correct gradient. For now, we're going to settle on this one, and I'm going to adjust as I go. So, for example, instead of messing around here, I'm just going to adjust it here. And that is our gradient. And so it's still going to have the sharp line, but there's a trick that we can do to get rid of it. So next up is we want to add the logo. All right, so again, logo always needs to be on the hero visual. It should not take up too much space. And we're just going to essentially redesign their email here. So since we're just redesigning this email, I'm going to move it over so that we can see it a bit more clearer. And we're just going to take over the text, but obviously redesign. So first things first is starting with the headline, which is discover the power of WAP. So I'm going to press T as a shortcut. I'm going to add in my text, and then I'm going to type it over here, cover. Okay, so we are going to do that, and we are going to change up the text size to about here. And by the way, when this happens, you just need to change up the line height and letter spacing. So you can just drag this. So if that error ever happens to you where it's kind of overlapping, that's all you need to do. And we're going to drag it central. So I like to hold shift and drag it along, and it will show you that red line. It kind of centralizes itself. So super easy. Now we got this first part. Next part is the secondary text. Now I've already done this on the side here, copy paste, and then we are good to go. So essentially it will look something like this, right? So I'll probably adjust the sizes and the spacing. Let's adjust this slightly, make sure it's central. All right, cool. So that's essentially just the text that they have over here. Now the difference is that I want to add a CTA higher up. So I'm going to add a rectangle. Again, just press R on your keyboard. I'm going to bring it over here, but I don't want this harsh square at all. So what I'm going to do is centralize it, and then I am going to add a corner radius. So you can see I can just drag my mouse and add, or you can add a specific number. But I think that's pretty good. I am maybe just going to expand it a little bit. I'm going to color this. Again, I'm making sure that we kind of focus on two colors throughout the entirety of this email so it's not overwhelming. And so I'm adding a white button, and then I'm just going to add some text on top of the button, which is get. All right, great. So we're just going to do that. And if we really wanted, we could add a little bit of extra style and like color it to the back end, right? So it depends on what you want to do and personal preference. Maybe we'll make it a bit darker. Cool. So that's me. Looks pretty solid. I'm happy with that. And now the line is still a little bit harsh for my liking. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to group these. So group, I right click, I group, and I'm just making it hero CTA. Again, I like to personally just rename everything so that it's clear. So hero text, so this logo. It's really, trust me, it's going to help you in the design process to do all these additional texts. It will make a big difference to your organization, all right? Especially when you have to layer everything and drag and drop things. So now, again, for my liking, I think that the line is too harsh. So what I'm going to go ahead and do So I'm actually going to drive the hero visual slightly up and move this up. And so kind of disguises itself behind the button, which in my opinion looks a lot better. And now what we're going to do is we're going to make the overall background of the frame, we're going to make it white, just for that consistency, like I said. All right, now this looks pretty decent. It's a lot better already. It's like this continuous design. As a user, I find this way more engaging. I can see, and I'm kind of curious about the image because it's showing the WAP's age or the WHOOP's age. And so this drives a lot more curiosity. I'm already engaging, and as a flow through, I actually want to read through. But now we've got this really annoying section where it's like showing me all the features of the product, but I kind of don't want to read through that. It's a little bit overwhelming as a user journey. So what I want to do is I want to add this element of the product. I'm just going to add it around here. And what I want to do is I want to turn this information into an infographic so it's way easier to digest. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add that infographic. So the image that I want, the product image, and I'm going to press L for line. And so essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line over here. And what I want to do is I want to make it dotted. So I'm going to make this a heavier weight. And I click here and I'm going to make it a dotted line. So it's going to be dashed. And then I also want to make the endpoint a circle arrow. All right, it's kind of like this typical infographic style. And let me make sure that this is central. Great. And what I'm going to do is I am going to add this information. So unparalleled battery life or updated sensory. So I'm just going to move this over here. So I've already copy pasted on the side here. And I'm essentially just going to do the same process. I'm going to add these lines, which I've done already. So to save you time, I'm just going to go ahead and do this. All right. And then the information. So you can see, by the way, I have added a drop shadow. So if you want to add a drop shadow, you can just play around and click on effects. And so it looks like that. So all of that looks good. I might want to extend this slightly, move this slightly down so it's not on top of each other. Now that looks way more digestible as a user journey. And now I want to add another subsection. So memberships for you. Great. And again, just changing the sizing. So we want to make it similar to the hero visual that we had earlier. All right, memberships for you. So now we're going into a new section. And again, this is, it takes up a lot of space, especially if you're on mobile. So we're not going to make major changes, but what we are going to do is we're just going to make it a little bit easier to digest. So we're just going to go ahead and add this image. We're going to go here, add this, and instead we're going to kind of layer it like this. So a bit of an alternating effect, right? So that's essentially what we're going to do. And then instead, what we want to do is we want to go and add these elements. So again, just add the button with the rectangle, and we're just going to add these elements instead. Now for my liking, this is a bit too close to the hero. I'm going to move this down. Great. So that looks good to me. And again, I'm just taking all the elements from the left here and making sure that the spacing is correct. All right. So if we compare it, aside from the spacing, everything looks pretty good to me. So we're essentially just turning this into a little bit of a different section over here. And so what we would probably do is add some letter branding over here as well. Change up some of the colors, change up some elements, make sure they focus on specific keywords. But right now, this is what our email looks like so far. Definitely miles better than this, especially in terms of the user experience, the design experience. And again, this is going to generate way more sales because, again, number one, they can quickly understand what the product is that we're promoting and what it does and what the differences are. And number two, they can see exactly where to convert within the first 5 seconds. There's no guessing. There's no confusion around where to convert. It is right there. And then next up is we just want to make a very final, clear call to action. So what we're going to do is a very similar thing that we did earlier. We're going to add this final product image. I'm going to add another rectangle, which I would like to put over here. All right. So we're going to put that over there. And now what we want to do is we want to add a corner radius. And so what I'm going to do is make this let's make this 70. All right. And we're going to extend this. And so what we're going to do is, again, this is why it's important to add the names, is we're just going to drag it behind, and then we want to make this a little bit of a gradient again. And we actually want to keep this color grading a little bit. So let's make this a dark color. And that to me looks pretty solid. And then because the rest of the email is a little bit darker, like there's more black tones, I am going to change this a little bit. So I'm going to change this to that. And we're going to make this a little bit darker over here. And that to me looks pretty good. Maybe drag this over a little bit. Great. So now we have this like really nice gradient. And what we're going to do is we're just going to copy paste the button that we've made previously. We're going to come here. We want to make sure that is central. There we go. And we're just going to flip the colors. Okay. I'm going to make this black. All right. And here we're just going to reiterate get whoop. All right, cool. And then obviously we're going to have this little hero section. So we're just going to add that on from the previous design. And we're going to extend this out. All right. So that's essentially the email. It is way more consistent, way more better branded. You know, everything is just a little bit more of an improvement, but you can also see the process of design. So it always follows from the hero visual, and then you want to carry on from there with some design elements, following that formula I showed you earlier, and overall just making sure that it is not overwhelming as a user to read and understand the products. So this is really easy to summarize. Now that we've got our frame though, now we need to export, right? Because everything is under this frame, which means I can drag it. It is considering this as one singular email. Now, what we want to do is Figma has this really great section where we can go click at the bottom here and we can click slice. And so what you're going to do is you're literally going to select your slices. You slice up the email. So you're going to create some slices over here. That is a slice. You're going to go ahead and do it again. And then you're going to slice the next part, which I will make until here. And then you're going to slice the next one until here. And then so on. You want to do this for the rest of the email. So essentially, now you have these slices. So, you know, you've got slice 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so what we want to do is we want to go and select them, and we're going to export them. You want to export them as a PNG, and essentially it's literally just going to export these as images. So we're going to export these, and then we're going to go over to Klaviyo. We're going to go create a campaign. We're going to just create a single channel campaign, and then we're going to build it out together. So essentially, we're going to go next. Let's just do this. Go to the next page, and then we're going to create it from scratch, just so you can see everything. And so we're going to delete all of the elements over here. Essentially, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and drag and drop. So super simple. I'm going to go to what we just exported, drag and drop. And we want to make sure that we actually compress them. So a lot of people think you have to compress outside of Klaviyo. Make sure you compress. It is very, very, very important to compress your files for means of loading, right? So here is slice number 1. Great. Number 2. So we're just uploading as images. There is another way to do it as well, which I'm happy to do a separate video on, is how to build these out in Klaviyo itself, which is sometimes best practice, is considered an HTML design. But essentially, let's just go ahead and do this. And there we go. You pretty much have your design, and then you'll just do your footer section as well. But this is essentially all it is. You have your design really clean, and you just want to make sure that on all of these elements, you are linking to the correct website. So Now you know exactly how to build an email, how to identify a really good performing email, and also how to recreate it so that your emails do end up generating tons of revenue for you. Now, if you're looking for a brand to go ahead and do it for you instead of you doing all of this work yourself, and you don't have the time, you don't have the resource, and let's just say you are working with an agency, you just want a better team that really pays attention to your branding, then go ahead and book in a call down below. We only work with specific brands, so obviously just fill out the form when you book in a call. We'll see if you're a good fit and we'll take it from there. But otherwise, watch the other videos, get tons of value, and I'll see you in the next one.